I am here with Christopher Williams, a drummer born for the stage, from wearing out toy drum kits as a kid to touring the world with legendary metal band Accept. Christopher Williams, born to be behind the kit, a versatile and powerhouse drummer. He honed his craft through rock, jazz, funk, blues, and orchestral music, even earning a gold medal in the individual and ensemble competition. Based in Nashville, Christopher has built a stellar reputation working with icons like Gene Simmons, Ace Frehley, Rex Brown, and Kid Rock, while also recording and performing across multiple genres. I could go on for a long time, but I think that's a good enough setup for you.
You are far too kind, sir. Thank you very much. My
Yeah,
brother.
man. The cool thing about this, and man, I've had some epic people on here. I've had Matt Bissonette
Oh, wow.
last week, and I had Rudy Sarzo on here, and I've had James Michael from 6 a.m.
Nice.
And so you're a nice
I guess
little flavor of metal here. Let's
I
get
should
some metal going today, right?
rock and roll hair down then, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
So the
Oh,
cool thing is this, man. We met on a gig in Nashville,
hmm. Yes, we.
and I'm not gonna name the artist, but I get a call to go play this gig, and I say, "Well, who's on the gig?" Right? And she says, "Christopher Williams is on drums." Well, I'd never played with Christopher Williams, so then I'm inquiring. I'm looking up on Facebook. Okay, who is? I like to know what I'm getting involved with,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then I see it's you, right? And I knew that you had played with my friend Wolf Hoffman and Accept, and also worked with a guy that was like stage managing for me, out on the road, right? And the thing is, man, people tend to pigeonhole musicians and think this dude's a metal dude, and I can't call him for the jazz gig, or I can't call him for the funk gig, or I can't. That's just how people do it, man.
Yep.
And the beauty of it was you showed up on the gig, you listened, you played the appropriate volume, the right tempos, all of that stuff, and we just played good music, and nobody got injured, and we had a great time.
And of all things, it was like lots of Latin music, right? It was like
Yeah,
and stuff and bossas and sambas and brushes and yeah, all kinds of stuff. It was
it
fun.
was a lounge gig, man.
It was great. I loved it because I
And,
had.
and and here's the thing: as you get older, I started out playing heavy metal, and then as I got older, I started really liking those quiet gigs and knowing that I don't have to go try to injure people or head cut, or do any of that stuff that we get pulled into as musicians.
Yeah, man, I brought my pack. I brought my monitors, my in-ear monitors and everything. And then, because I think I'd only been inside of that venue once. And that was like just stepped in for a cocktail to meet a buddy, you know? And so I wasn't even paying attention. So I'm going, cool. Yeah, I'll bring my ears, but I get it. Like, prepare for any situation, always, no matter
Yeah,
what, always have the brushes in the bag and everything. And got there and I was like, well, all right. The ears and the pack can stay in the book
yeah,
bag. That could stay packed up. That could stay cool. So we're going with a giant, oversized, like wool beater, like they call the bomber beater, you know, and we're just gonna feather the kick all night and just lay it in there.
just lay back and chill.
It was great, man. And I hadn't played in an intimate setting like that or with that type of music in so long that I was nervous about it. I came in going, I know I used to do this, but that's been a long time, man. And then it came right back and I had so much fun. So much fun. Just the whole night just smiling and just because it's one thing to get on stage and, bash the hell out of your instrument, whether it be drums, guitar, bass, whatever. Like be the loud, obnoxious one. It's another thing to really, really hone in and pull the listener inside of the music and be as dynamic as you possibly can. That's a whole other adventure that's equally as satisfying and rewarding and gives you that much more pleasure as just as much as, the big gig, so to speak.
Yeah, man.
All anytime I'd love to come back and do that again.
Yeah, man. And here's the thing, man. I had a similar experience when I moved to Nashville because I had been out in LA playing hair metal.
Hmm.
And I get to Nashville and somebody goes, "Hey, you want to play this gig Friday night?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay." And it was literally like show up. I knew I had to wear a button-down shirt. I had to pull the hair back. And I get to the gig, the guys puts the charts in front of me. It's all like, like real book kind of like stuff.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like, man, if these guys even knew that I had been in at the Whiskey A Go Go,
Yep.
with two babes and two 412 cabs and a 100-watt Marshall head, they wouldn't have hired me on this gig. But I'm gonna just keep all of that quiet and just and it's like you call on that stuff that you worked on when you were in school, all of that stuff. Now I'm reading your bio, and it says you honed your craft: rock, jazz, funk, and blues. Tell me about that. Tell me about your studying of different styles.
Well, so the musical, like the diversity in my background, all comes from just what was played around the house. I've got my only sibling, my brother Travis, is 5 years older than me, so he's the one that turned me on to Motley and Poison and all the metal stuff like of that era. Meanwhile, mom and dad are listening to anything from Christopher Cross to Stevie Ray Vaughan to, Zeppelin to whatever. Um, and then my uncle Peter is also turning me on to bands like AC/DC and Humble Pie and, check this out, check that out. Cheap Trick live at Budokan, put on some headphones and just play to this music and try to comp this vibe, this feel. Um, then my father passed when I was 3, unfortunately, and so mom found it too hard to listen to the stuff that she and dad had listened to. And so that led her into kind of like contemporary Christian music, like Carmen, Michael W. Smith. So, is it Amy Grant? Amy Grant's Christian.
Amy Grant, yeah.
Amy Grant, artists like that. And then also the country music of the time that was on CMT, you know, uh, Kathy Mattea, Tanya Tucker, Clint Black, Travis Tritt when he was booming. And I
Yeah.
remember watching Garth videos, and it's like they do that in country too, not knowing that, well, he's a massive Kiss fan and rock guy. And
Yeah.
so there was all of that. Um, when I was a little kid, if I couldn't sleep, I would have my mom put on what I called pretty music, which was either orchestral music or these just piano pieces, these
Wow.
piano pieces. And I learned to fall in love with that as well. Then fast forward sophomore year of high school, half the day I did my academics at the regular high school. The other half I went to an art school called the Fine Arts Center in Greenville, South Carolina. And that led to jazz studies and playing four mallet marimba, timpani. I became all county timpanist during one of the competitions, all the while doing marching band, which got me into rudimental snare drum, which then led to drum and bugle corps. And it was just this constant evolution. And I remember at some point, somewhere in the midst of all that, like my brother at one point really got into the Dead. Then he kind of got into like ska music for a bit. And then it was like early 90s skater punk. He'd bring that stuff in because he was a skateboarder and just all kinds of stuff. And the next thing you know, it's Pantera, White Zombie, you know. So it's just all these different songs. And of course, then you turn on MTV the hair metal stuff disappears one day, and it's grunge, of course, which is cool. But then you start seeing, like, I mean, of course, Janet and Michael Jackson were always on there anyway, different hours, but you start seeing more of that style of music, and pop and rap and hip hop. My brother Travis was a huge Wu-Tang fan. So
Wow.
it's like all of this stuff coming from
Yeah.
every angle imaginable.
Wow.
Then you have your friends that are turning you on to cool stuff too. And so, I mean, for me as a kid, my radio was constantly on, and I was always just turning the dial, trying to find the next station during the commercial breaks. I still
Wow.
do if I'm driving. I just,
Yeah.
commercial comes on, find
Yeah.
music, find something,
Wow.
you know. And it
That's
and
that's amazing, man.
it all shapes you as a player,
Yeah.
you know. It's being a fan of music was one thing, but then it kind of, earworm, it works its way in there.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, just randomly throw in a break and just play, Poison, Belle Biv DeVoe, da, 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 da,
Yeah.
something,
Yeah.
So it was all just kind of that whole thing for years and years and years. And then one day it was like, oh, try playing this. And it's like, oh, well, that's easy. Well, why is that easy? Oh, because I've been listening to this drummer or this band a ton who was influenced by these two people, these two different drummers. Like, for example, when I started really digging into John Bonham, like the feel of his parts came kind of natural, and Mitch Mitchell and Keith Moon, but it didn't make sense, like why that's just there. Well, it was Jerry Shirley from Humble Pie.
Yeah.
I had ate up so much of his stuff that by the time I got to his influence, it's like, oh, that's where that stuff comes from.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, let's dig into them even more, and it just
Yeah.
kind of shapes you. And as a player, it just kind of helps you create your own voice, hopefully. At least
Yeah.
that's what we all kind of strive for anyway.
Yeah. That is the recipe right there. And man, that is such an incredible amount of diverse influences. And that, man, like I said, that will be the recipe for having your own sound and being able to adapt. And you didn't probably realize it at the time, but you were setting yourself up to be able to have a long career.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and all I wanted to do was play drums and play music. It didn't matter what kind of music. My
Yeah.
first concert was Kentucky Headhunters picking on Nashville tour, in
Yeah.
Greensboro, North Carolina.
Wow.
You know? After and seeing Fred Young up there with his double bass kit
And the,
and the chops, he still got them. And I got to hang out with him years and years later, like, which totally blew my mind because I was a massive, massive fan. Still am.
yeah.
Still am. Love that band. You
That
know.
that is amazing, man. And I'm like hearing this and relating to it so much because, man, a lot of times I'll get guys on my channel and they'll say, "Oh, I don't like that. Why did you play with those guys? Why did you do that gig? I don't like that kind of music." And I'm thinking, dude, if you're hungry, if you need to pay your rent,
There's that.
you start thinking about, well, you know what, maybe this isn't exactly what I would want to play, but I'm getting the opportunity, the phone is ringing, and I've got to make a decision for me whether I can make what I do work in that context.
Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head with that one too, especially. You want to be a working musician? That phone call rings, you better be able to do what it says. Or even more important than being able to pull it off, be honest with the person that's calling you. If it's not your gig, it's okay to say, "Hey, man, that's not really my wheelhouse."
Yeah.
You know? If you call me right now to go sit in and play like heavy jazz, like, nah, dude, maybe 15, 20 years ago, cool, like burning. Nowadays, like, call that guy.
Well, you could dust it off if
Yeah.
if I gave you 3 weeks notice.
Yeah. That's different. But yeah, there'd be some serious shedding going on though, boy.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, I
hands,
know I know the
the
feeling.
hands
And,
are there. It's
and
about,
what happens, Matt Bissonette was saying that if there's a weakness on the field, the ball will find you.
mm-hmm.
You could sit out there
Oh,
in right field and hope that nobody hits the ball to you,
it's
but
coming right to
eventually
you
that
first
ball's going
play.
to get hit to you, and you better be ready.
You better be under it and ready to go. That's it, man.
Absolutely.
That's it. But but that's part of it too. Like, I don't get called to play Latin gigs, ethnic gigs. Like, I don't, I'm not a world percussion guy, and
Yeah.
I'll be the first to admit that. You want congas, djembe, bongos, I'm not your guy.
Yeah.
I can fake my way through it, and if that works for the situation, awesome. But if you want a legit musician that does that, I got their phone numbers,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. And that's a very, very important thing too, is to be honest with yourself. Have I studied it? Yes. That's why I said, can I fake my way through it? Sure. But my hands are going to fall off halfway through the night, and it's not going to sound as good as that other person can deliver because that's their thing.
Yeah.
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 But
It's important to have a wide swath of what you can do, but nobody can do it all.
no, and it's know your strengths, know your weaknesses. Practice, work on your weaknesses, try to improve and strengthen those areas too. But, you know, I'm not getting calls to play acid jazz and crazy odd meter fusion. I
Yeah.
can. I can play all kinds of Virgil Donati, Thomas Lang stuff all day and eat that stuff up. But I'd much rather lay down a fat groove,
Yeah.
just a freight train coming at you, because that's where, you know, my heart and my, like, all of that is.
Yeah.
Just like if I sit down at a kit, can I blast beat? Sure. Do I sit down at a kit and blast? No, I sit down and just start laying down a pocket because that's
Yeah.
what feels good for
Yeah.
me. Everybody's got their own thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody's got their own feel.
Hmm.
Do you work on things like playing behind, playing on top, playing right on the click, all of those things?
Not so much, because I mean I've worked on that in the past. Like it was really like the behind the beat thing, not boasting by any means, but apparently that I kind of had that early on. I remember playing with my uncle and he's like, "Damn, dude, you got a pocket, deep pocket." And I had no idea what that meant as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, but now it's like, oh, okay. But that's just how, like, when I sit down and play, that's just what comes out. But uh, when I was marching, doing drum and bugle corps, and they're running a metronome behind you through a loudspeaker all summer,
Oh, wow.
you really learn how to play with a click. That's where that really came into light. Like, keeping tempo wasn't a problem, but when you play with the metronome, learning how to play ahead, how to play dead on so you bury it, which can be a very scary thing because suddenly it disappears into
Yeah.
thin air. And you need to have the confidence to know, like, I'm right on it. We
Yeah.
got this. And that's that pop dance stuff that, you turn on the radio and I'd be playing along to that. And it's like, okay, machine, we're
Yeah.
dead on it. Playing ahead, like slightly punk stuff. I do that with Accept a lot during the shows, because I know some songs like Teutonic Terror, certain sections like the verses I can really lay back. It's still tight, but it's swinging. It's bouncing. And then during the chorus, dead on. Restless and Wild, that main riff, you got to push that a little bit or it
Yeah.
doesn't feel right. But then in the verse, you can drop right on top of the beat. Some songs you can play back. Shadow Soldiers, dead nuts on the beat, but it's bouncing, it's tight. And then when we get to the big middle section, the halftime solo, that's way behind the beat. You could drive a truck through there, you know. So it's knowing the music and how to do that and when it's um appropriate to do that, you know. So
Absolutely.
so I guess it was to long answer shortened. Um, I think that just comes with time and experience, you know,
Yeah.
from those different styles. But if I hadn't had the background and listening to all those different styles, I'm sure I would have sat down with the click and just been like, yeah, okay. So how do we go ahead? How do we play on? How do we back there? You know, which I mean, that's an incredible skill set. Like you should have that
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
a performing musician or recording musician or anything, you know.
Absolutely. And I just had a interview last week with Jeff Berlin,
Mm,
and he's the anti-metronome guy.
yeah, yeah,
So and I even told Jeff, I said, Jeff, it's kind of like I went downriver and I'm coming to interview Kurtz in Apocalypse Now and determine whether your methods are unsound or not and whether you've gone insane. And here's the thing, man. He's said this. He said there is no instance of playing live where practicing with a click will help you. And I waited till he said his piece, right? And then I said, "But Jeff, when you tour with a large group now, a group that's playing 20,000 seat arenas, you put these little things in your ears and you hear tick 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 bling and the song starts.
yep,
So all those years where I sat with a drum machine or I sat with a metronome and tried to make sure that I was locking up with those things, all of that time paid off because it,
absolutely.
it didn't phase me that all of a sudden I got tick tick tick, go. And so
Well, and what happens if your, you know, your guitar player or your bass player hears that and their meter sucks and they go tick 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 boom boom ding gung gung and they're playing slow or they're rushing like sorry.
yeah,
I mean, I I can understand where Jeff's coming from. Like if you're on stage moving as a band and you want the ebbs and flows and you want it to push and pull and do that thing because that's how that band does it, that's great. In
yeah,
that instance, sure, you can't have a click. Maybe set one up for a starter tempo if you need it, or
yeah,
just go, you
yeah,
know. I don't necessarily think as a professional touring musician that there's any wrong or right way to do it. It's what works and is appropriate for the situation.
yeah,
If you're AC/DC just out there killing it, hell no, don't run a
yeah,
click, man.
yeah, yeah,
But you don't need to because you're
yeah,
friggin' AC/DC, right? But
yeah,
if you're mega pop band, you know, with a bunch of sequencing and all that, or I just watched an hour long documentary on YouTube about Rammstein's last, you know, 4 year tour. That whole show is synced up with time code,
yeah,
you know. Damn well better be able to play to
yeah,
a click if you're
yeah,
on that gig,
yeah,
or if you're even running lights or, you know, calling audibles, you better have good time.
yeah, yeah.
So it's everything is different for every situation.
Yeah, yeah, it is different, man. And that being said, if you can divulge the information, is Does Accept use a click live, or you guys just go for it?
I've got references in there for count ins, but that's about it.
Yeah,
Run. Um, there's been tours and stuff where we'll sync it up with where we've had LDs that want to run time code for lighting and patch changes and all that stuff. We've experimented with it over the years, but I mean, at this point, I get a count in and then we're just off,
yeah,
you know. I mean, it's a machine.
yeah. And you guys, the economics of heavy metal kind of dictate that you guys are huge, overseas. You're playing tons of shows in Europe. You're
Yeah.
probably playing Japan and all these different places, and very little, touring here in the States, just because kind of the economics of a metal band. Is that correct?
Yep. Well, and then of course the band's originally from Germany, so naturally that's a big thing. But they were always bigger in Europe than the States. Um, I'd say between, Balls and Metal Heart was there like years in the States, and then it kind of fell off. Um, and unfortunately, post 80s, it never really came back to that. They had a good run, of course, with Blood of the Nations, and then it became an issue of the promoters don't want to match what we need to make to be able to afford because you got a bus, you got crew, you got management taking their cut. We got to get paid, you know. You got trucks or you got the trailer rental behind it. The buses are not cheap, trust me. Even the cheap buses are still 2,500 to 5 grand a day depending on your deal, plus fuel,
Yeah.
plus hotel rooms for the driver
Yep.
because they can only drive so many hours, then they're off the clock and legally obligated to, you know, rest outside of the book. So there's all that crap. And then that doesn't even get into the expense of shipping your gear around. It's not cheap.
Yeah.
And it sucks because we're often questioned, why don't you play here? Come back to here, or blah, 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 blah. And I don't know how many times, and I'm sure you have, and every band does, like, you have to say, look, it's not up to us.
Yeah.
I don't call Bridgestone Arena and say, hey, book my band.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they would probably laugh and hang up. And then if I called back and said, hey, I'm serious, they'd say, okay, here's our venue fee. This is what it costs to lease our venue for the night,
Yeah.
plus our staff, plus security, plus da 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 da.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff gets paid off the top.
Yeah. Yep.
So if a promoter's not willing to match your guarantee, the minimum that you need to make just to make the show happen, the show doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And that's reality. That's business.
Yeah.
If if the bank comes to you and says, "Hey, you didn't pay your mortgage," and you go, "Oh, well, it was a slow month, or I took a few extra days off work." Sorry, you still got to pay the bills.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. The economics of it's tough in the States. And here's the thing, man, when you guys play Europe, you're playing for 20, 30,000 people, right? What's the largest crowd that you guys have done over there?
Uh, Prior to my joining, the year before I joined, they played the Woodstock Festival in Poland
Wow.
for 750,000 people. And what's funny, it wasn't a metal show. It was more like pop and electronic music. And some somebody thought it would be a good idea to book them, but you can find the gig on YouTube. It's up there, I think.
Wow.
It was just Woodstock, Poland, 2014. They did it
Wow.
like the spring or summer of 14, and then I came in 15.
Wow.
For me, the biggest ones I think have been the two Wacken shows because that's 85,000 in the main field. Plus, there's people up on elevated platforms, because the field's full. Then there's all the people outside of that watching it. If there's not a band on another stage, they're showing the live feed from the main stage. When we did it in 2017 with the Czech National Symphony Orchestra, more than 1 million people around the world live streamed our set, and it was simulcast in over 7 different countries. Like, no pressure. Oh, and
Yeah.
we're filming it for a DVD. No pressure. And there's bombs and fire and stuff.
Yeah.
You got this. It's fine.
Yeah. That
Oh,
is
by
a
the way,
thing. Do you feel
stage
yourself,
arrangements for the
yeah, do you
orchestra
feel
too.
yourself detach almost for one, hopefully by that point in time, the show becomes a lot of muscle memory and it's almost like you start playing and it's like your body takes over. But there's something about it when you're playing these immense things. It's almost like an out of body experience. Have you had that experience?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I try to find that spot in at some moment, one time or another throughout every gig, and just try to get like the zen, you have elevated and all that. But um, yeah, the muscle memory thing is 100% true. There have been moments on gigs where you're playing, I call it six-way coordination. Because four-way with the four limbs as a drummer, I'm singing all the high harmonies. So that's five.
Wow.
And then sometimes I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat after the show. There's the sixth one. And then, but the problem with that is sometimes that'll get you in trouble because you come back in and you go, ah, shit, where are we? Is this the second or the first chorus? Is this a double or no, up there it is.
Wow.
You catch it right before it happens. But no, most of the time it's that like your body, like you said, it just kind of takes over. And especially, I mean, once you're a few shows into a tour and the machine really starts rolling, because we don't change the set list around that much.
Yeah.
We'll probably, if we're doing a headline set, we usually play 2 hours, maybe 2 hours 15. Um, it's about 20 songs a night, and we'll probably have 5 or 6 alternates that will swap out throughout the tour. And it's usually it's newer stuff or it's something we haven't played in a while. Um, and some of those like they go over great in this audience, and then you get to that other section of Europe or whatever, and maybe like 3 shows it just doesn't work. So you go, all right, and you pull it. Or what you thought was a killer song in rehearsal, when you get on stage, it just doesn't translate to the
Yeah.
audience. So you go,
Yeah.
okay, well, we tried. Um, let's pull that one in. Let's
Yeah.
play that. That's a fun tune. Um, a few years ago, Wolf chopped up it's 4 or 5 songs into what we call the riff orgy. So it starts with Demon's Night, and I've blocked it out. I don't even remember. But it's like I know Flash Rockin' Man's in there, and it's 2 or 3 others, but it's kind of like the best sections of each of those songs, and bang, bang, bang. And I think it's 9 or 10 minutes,
Wow.
and just onslaught. It's
Yeah.
like we do what's the one from Breaker? Uh Starlight. Star, doing that one. And it's like, okay, cool, we got this tune, and then it's then and 1, 2, 3, 4, go, 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 go. Then we're off, and then it's the super fast song, and you're just like,
Yeah.
all right, cool. But then that's another way of bringing in different material. Instead of playing 2 songs in that time slot, you play four.
Yeah.
So that's fun, and then you can rotate the other alternates in and out as you feel.
Yeah. How
So,
do they now this is interesting. I didn't know that you sang the harmony vocals. So
I'm
this is a
hanging up
whole,
above Mark.
yeah, this is a whole nother can of worms we just opened
Oh,
up.
yeah, it's fun.
And first of all, I mean, I would define his vocals as I guess that's what I call a screech vocalist. Is that how what they call that?
I guess. I mean, he's definitely got a billion times more power than Udo's voice.
Yeah.
He's still got the range, of course, but I mean, Udo was singing from here and Mark's singing from the diaphragm, from the
Yeah.
gut. Like,
Yeah.
good Lord. When like he and I share a dressing room because we're the two loudest, most obnoxious ones in the band. You know, the string players are over there nerding out. I'm on a pad and stretching and doing all that, and he's doing vocal warm-ups. I'll do vocal warm-ups with him while I'm stretching.
Wow.
And nobody wants to hear any of that nonsense because it's obnoxious, but you have to,
Yeah.
you know. Um, but yeah, he is up there, boy. And then I've got to sing above that. And
How do you do it? Do you do falsetto or what do you do?
a lot of it's full voice.
Wow.
I'm a tenor two, actually.
Wow.
So when I sing full tilt, it just comes out in the upper echelon.
Wow.
Then I jump around a lot vocally and just if Mark's going high, there's sometimes too where like if his voice is messing with him or something, he'll kind of do one of these or give me a look and I know like okay, I'm doing his part up there, he's dropping down, or he'll turn around and give me a look and then I'm going low, he's going way the hell up top because he's
Wow.
yeah, I'm about to kill this. And then I'll be singing down doing bass with Wolf,
Wow.
is the balls to the wall.
Yeah, he does the low stuff.
He's down there. So I'm doubling him or doing up there
Wow.
lead vocal if it's a gang vocal or a part like when we there's a ballad from I think it was from Too Mean to Die, yeah, called The Best Is Yet to Come. I double him on the chorus because he sounds fine doing it, and then in rehearsal we just tried it out just for shits and giggles, and it was this wall coming out. So then Martin Motnick, our bass player, who will sometimes double me up top or he'll kind of jump around. He'll take the high, and then Phil Schaus is the middle vocal. So there's this stack
Wow.
of all these vocals, and it just becomes this huge sound.
Yeah. That's amazing that you guys, probably because you're in that rehearsal room or the dressing room together and working on vocals, you and the singer have this rapport where he can just give you a look and man, that's something I can remember being out on the road playing the Manila Araneta Coliseum in the Philippines. And I'm on stage and the singer's starting to lose his voice and we've got like 2 more hours on stage and we just all kind of just looked at each other and it was like okay, we're the Beatles, and we just all started
Yep.
just singing unison,
Yep.
because it's like, man, we got to get through this gig, dude.
Yep. Whatever it takes, man. It's a team effort.
It's a
Absolutely.
team effort, and
Yeah.
being aware of if somebody's having a rough night or not. It now, as far as having to fly over there,
Mhm.
all the crazy travel, and I think I saw one of your Facebook posts, and it was like, well, we traveled this, and then we did this, and now we're sleeping in an airport, and now we're doing this, and then boom, it's time to go on stage, and now you got to sing.
We played in Siberia in 2019. That was a 36-hour fly day. That was 36 hours of traveling. I think 4 or 5 flights. And there was no like, oh, well, we'll take this break here and get rooms. No, it was like, all right, well, we got a couple hours. Okay, now we're on another plane. Okay, now we're on another plane. Now we're on another plane. Doing that stuff, you
Yeah.
know. But then being able to just Red Bull it up, coffee, espresso,
Yeah.
whatever. Just like,
Yeah.
all right, showtime, let's go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, we did Phil and Jeremy and Ryan Cook and I backed up Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley in Australia back in 2018. We had played a gig with Gene in Eastern Canada and then flew to Southern Australia, East Coast. Um, I think it maybe Adelaide was the first show. I can't remember. Whatever it was Southern Australia, somewhere down there. And that was a 35-hour travel day. And we lost a day or two by the time we had landed. I forget how the math and the timelines work, but we got to the hotel, checked in, hung out for like 2 hours, and then went to the gig, met the crew, start setting up the gear so they can learn how to do it, and then played the gig that night with Ace, and then had like a 30-minute changeover, and then went on stage with Gene.
Wow.
Same band, backing both of them, and but that's what you do.
Yeah.
If that's
Yeah.
what you got to do, that's the gig, man. So you
Yeah.
better get it done.
Yeah. And here's the thing, man. Air travel is not easy on the voice.
Nope.
Even if you slept for 36 hours, you're breathing everybody else's germs on the
Yep.
plane. You're breathing the air conditioning's blowing, which air conditioning can wreak havoc on your voice.
Dried out, man. Dried out.
Do
And
you have any tricks that you use to try to combat these things?
not really. I mean, the nightly ritual, if you will, is if there's throat coat in the bag, have one of those. Like we'll get to the venue. I'll make food for after show or something if we're not having something brought in. Quick bite and then throat coat, start stretching. Once that's done, hot water, lemon, and fresh ginger. And then just have that, eat the raw ginger at the end, get all that warmed up,
Yeah.
do some singing backstage, just all lightly follow some of Mark's stuff. And then the last 10 minutes or so before we walk to the stage, I'll put on AC/DC or something like that. And then you just kind of loosen up, listening to music and singing along. And that's the real warm up. And then afterwards, I warm down.
Yeah.
Mark doesn't. I don't know how he doesn't, but Bud Light on stage or any kind of lighter beer on stage, that's his lubricant. That's his trick.
That's old school, baby.
Yep. Yep.
Man, that is amazing. For me, man, because I used to have to do 5 shows in a row and I'd be singing, right?
Hmm.
And I used Fisherman's Friend. Have you ever tried that?
Those are great. Yeah.
Yeah. I would sleep with it in each side of my mouth
Really?
because, especially if you're in a bunk,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
if you're in a bus bunk, put
Yep.
that Fisherman's Friend in there, and then all night your voice stays lubricated because, man, once it dries out, dude.
Yeah. It's done.
Yeah.
I used to sleep with the fan on in the bunk for years and years and years, and the curtain closed, and I would always wake up dried out and not know why. Then I would put if I really need to, I'll turn it on, but I'll put the vent because I'm always bottom bunk.
Yeah.
I like to be able to not worry about falling out when I'm asleep. Um, but yeah, so I'll face it up to the top of the bunk, but
Yeah.
then crack the curtain so you get air circulation
Yeah.
through there. And then once I started doing that a couple years ago, it's like, oh my God, this makes all the difference.
Yeah.
There,
Yeah.
if you remind me, um, or if anybody out there wants to find it, I know it's on the band's Instagram page, but there's a clip of us in rehearsal singing the harmonies for Monster Man, if you're
Wow.
familiar with that song. And it's just a stack of vocals. It's killer.
That's
But that'll
amazing.
kind of give you an idea of where everybody's at.
Wow. That's amazing because most people would think, oh, it's accept. They're just gonna go out there, 4 guys, football vocal it up, football chorus. but you guys are actually everybody's singing a part, everybody's got a role, and the same thing goes for the instrumentation. You guys have Wolf, obviously,
Yep.
and I know Philip, but then sometimes you guys have a third guitar player,
Well,
right?
we have Uwe Lulis, who's from Gravedigger and Rebellion, and a fantastic producer in his own right. He's actually been the rhythm guitarist since I joined 10
Oh,
years ago.
wow.
We've done appearances here in the States where if it's a one-off or like just two, it comes down to visa and logistics and cost,
Yeah.
you know. Whereas if we're doing a tour, yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
And
Eh,
he's happy to go, dude. No, I'll stay home and work on somebody's album,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
And
know.
didn't you guys have Joel Hoekstra for a show or two?
We had him for the better part of last year, actually.
Wow.
We went through South America for a month with him in the spring, and then June, July, we had all the summer festivals. He was out there with us.
Wow. What was that like for him and for you guys?
He had a blast, man, and we loved it. He's the utmost professional, super, super cool dude, great hang. He'd run the show every day in his hotel room
Wow.
and get on stage and just crush it. You know,
Yeah.
the guy's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
And I actually, we were chatting back and forth yesterday, texting, and it's like, man, I miss you. I really, really hope we get to work together again sometime
Yeah.
because he's great, man.
Yeah. Now, how does that tie into, like, say you guys are off the road? What are you normally doing when say you guys are going to take a break or a few months off or whatever? What's your modus operandi for work?
Uh, I still play. I We have a setup here at the house recording studio, and I work out of the house. Sometimes I might go downtown and do the Broadway thing, depending on the band. If it's going to be a fun gig
Yeah.
where you get the itch to do
Yeah.
that play, I'll do that. But a lot of the times I'm doing anything but music. I've got a wood shop here at the house. I'm a welder now.
Wow.
My friend Tim Tucker taught me how to weld last year, and don't start small. I built two giant rack systems with all this like rolled tubing and stuff.
Wow.
So there's a rig in Europe that I did, and then the one for the States was even more intricate. That was about 2.5 weeks to build that thing.
Wow.
So doing that. Uh, Soon I'm launching a business called Kick Logos, which is going to be custom drum heads, artwork, graphics, because I've done my own drum heads for years and years. And just recently, some people have reached out. Jared Pope from the residency, I've done a couple of his drum heads now, and it's cool for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
something. And the cool thing though is obviously with Kick Logos, it ties directly into music, but with woodworking and welding, it can tie into music and art, or it can be completely different.
Yeah.
I can build, a custom armoire or a bookcase, or I could build, a complete drum kit,
Yeah.
do stave shells or segment shells if
Yeah.
I wanted to, and so it's cool. And the welding thing, you could make art, or you could just weld something up that needs to get fixed, or you can build a drum rack,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I'm open to all that. It's wherever the creativity takes you, just go with it.
Yeah.
And it's cool because sometimes it's good to step away from work.
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
music's not work, sometimes it's just good to put it down, reset,
Yeah.
and when you come back, it's like this brand new thing again. It's
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as time goes by, I'm starting to do that more and more,
Yeah.
where it's like, okay, you know what? I don't have to play drums every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even have to look at drums or think about them
Yeah.
because then when I come back, now I'm inspired again. Now I
Yeah.
want to do it, Or if I'm just really feeling like, man, I love this instrument, hell yeah, dig in, man, go for it.
Yeah.
Or pick up a guitar, pick up a bass, write, do something. Just keep yourself going, but it doesn't always have to be your main thing,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely, man. Well, this has been a great conversation,
Likewise.
and I really enjoyed the time I got to work with you. And so now, if somebody wanted to send you tracks to play on their song or something like that, is there somewhere I can send them to do that? Do you do that stuff at home
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah. So my website is cwilliamsdrums.com. Social media, you can get hold of me through there as well. That's just at C. Williams Drums. The woodworking is CDW Woodworks with an X on the end. Metal stuff, CDW Metalworks. Pretty soon, kicklogos.com will be available. So any of those sources, you know,
We'll
reach
we'll
out.
put all of those links up. I'll put them in the description of the video because I'm all about, man. Here's the thing. I think telling your story, getting this is your brand, and we're gonna get your brand out there. And I thank you so much for doing this because, man, people want to hear the real stuff. They want to hear all of the ups and downs and all those things of the music business. And so everybody has a story to tell, and yours is a very fascinating one.
Well, thank you, man, and thanks for allowing me to come on the show. And I really, really hope we do get to play together again,
Yeah, man. I'm
regardless of
down
the
in
format.
Florida now. I'm in
Oh,
Florida,
okay. Right on.
but I'm doing a lot of this YouTube thing now. Is just starting to.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm planning on doing more stuff, and I'll hit you up when I need some drum tracks.
let's do it.
And man, I just want you to keep rocking, keep killing it out there with Accept,
Thank you, brother.
and tell Wolf I said yo.
I will.
And man, have a great evening and keep rocking.
Cheers, brother Brad.
Cheers, brother. Have a great night.
You too.
See you, brother.